In 1985, Pink Floyd was at their peak, valued at £50 million. Their leader, Roger Waters, had built the most ambitious show in rock history. Then, he made a decision that stunned the music industry. He walked away from Pink Floyd, certain they would collapse without him. But EMI's executives weren't worried. They knew something Waters didn't. His own creations were about to become his most valuable rivals. This is the story of how one man's pride cost him control of his life's work. Long before legal battles and billion-dollar regrets, Roger Waters was transforming Pink Floyd into something unprecedented in rock history. His vision for the Wall Tour wasn't just ambitious, it was revolutionary. Before the first show, Waters had spent $1.5 million on technology that didn't even exist yet. Former tour manager Peter Thompson witnessed Waters' dedication firsthand. Most bands would have played stadiums, maximized profits, but Roger insisted on smaller venues, perfect acoustics, complete control. He wasn't building a rock show, he was creating an experience. The scale was staggering. Every night, 14 carpenters constructed a 30-foot wall across the stage using 424 styrofoam bricks. A crew of nearly 120 people operated quadraphonic sound systems, 3 35mm projectors, and massive, inflatable puppets. Waters demanded perfection in every detail, from the computerized lighting to the synchronized sound effects that moved around the arena. But buried in the technical wizardry, the first warning signs appeared. Waters had sacrificed profitability for his artistic vision, insisting on smaller venues where his quadraphonic sound system and projected animations would work perfectly. Despite sold-out shows, the tour was barely breaking even. EMI watched with growing concern. By 1985, they valued Pink Floyd at £50 million. But behind the scenes, tensions were building. Waters wasn't just the band's creative force, he was its uncompromising taskmaster. Every detail, every note, every visual had to meet his exacting standards. What no one realized was that Waters was about to make a decision that would reshape rock history. And in EMI's boardroom, executives were preparing for a power struggle that would turn his artistic vision into their most valuable asset. December 24, 1987. While fans wondered about Pink Floyd's future, lawyers gathered on David Gilmour's houseboat to finalize paperwork that would change everything. After 2 years of bitter legal battles, Roger Waters was about to lose control of his artistic vision. EMI executives Bhaskar Menon and Bob Mercer had been watching the power struggle unfold. Waters didn't just want to leave. He wanted to legally dissolve Pink Floyd itself. His position was clear. Without him, Pink Floyd couldn't exist. Former EMI executive Sarah Chen remembers that time clearly. Roger fundamentally misunderstood what Pink Floyd had become. He saw an artistic vision. We saw a £50 million brand. His ego was writing checks his leverage couldn't cash. The battle moved from recording studios to courtrooms. Waters fought to stop his former bandmates from using everything he'd created, even the inflatable pig that had become their trademark. His legal team argued that Pink Floyd's imagery, concepts, and identity belonged to him alone. But EMI's strategy was already in motion. While Waters focused on creative control, David Gilmour and manager Steve O'Rourke were working with industry veterans who understood the modern music business. They didn't need to win the artistic argument. They just needed to protect Pink Floyd as a commercial entity. The final settlement was brutal in its simplicity. Waters would keep his songwriting royalties, but Pink Floyd's name and future belonged to his former bandmates. As he signed the papers on Gilmour's houseboat, Waters believed he was just giving up a name. He didn't realize he was losing something far more valuable. Waters was about to learn the true cost of walking away from an empire. And in EMI's legal department, the machinery was already in motion to turn his artistic creations into their most valuable asset. Behind the public battle over Pink Floyd's name, Another story was unfolding in EMI's boardrooms. Stage designer Mark Fisher and his team were already drawing up plans to transform Waters' intimate theatrical concepts into stadium spectacles. The real strategy wasn't just about music. It was about turning Waters' artistic vision into a mass-market product. Waters had built the wall tour around perfectionist details, quadraphonic sound, 35mm projectors, and elaborate theatrical elements. Now, Fisher and Jonathan Park were redesigning everything for maximum profit, supersizing every detail for stadiums. Former EMI marketing director James Roberts exposed their plan. Waters created experiences meant for 5,000 people in perfect conditions. We saw the potential to reach 50,000 people per night. The mathematics were simple: bigger venues, bigger profits, bigger everything. The technical transformation was ruthless in its efficiency. The wall's 424 carefully crafted bricks became modular units that could be scaled up. Waters' precise quadraphonic sound system was replaced with massive speaker arrays designed for stadiums. His meticulously planned theatrical elements were supersized into enormous inflatable puppets visible from the cheap seats. The concert industry quickly adapted. EMI and Columbia Records launched aggressive marketing campaigns, promoting Pink Floyd as a stadium act. A former ticket executive reveals, Waters was fighting for creative control in court while Gilmour's team was revolutionizing the business model. They turned Waters' avant-garde theater into the most profitable stadium show in rock. The December '87 settlement sealed Waters' fate. He kept his songwriting royalties, but lost control over how his creations would be used. Pink Floyd could now take his concepts, the wall, the pig, the prism, and market them however they wanted. The transformation was so complete that even Waters' anti-commercial message became a marketing tool. Industry veteran Peter Phillips puts it bluntly, "They didn't just take the name, they took his vision and scaled it up. Waters built an artistic statement. His former bandmates turned it into an industry. The machine had won. And that machine was just warming up." As Pink Floyd prepared for their first post-Waters tour, Mark Fisher's team was designing something that would prove just how valuable Waters' concepts could be when freed from his artistic constraints. The commercial transformation of Pink Floyd was about to reach heights that even EMI hadn't imagined. Between 1987 and 1994, Pink Floyd became something Waters never imagined, a commercial juggernaut that turned artistic concepts into stadium-sized spectacles. Under David Gilmour's leadership and Steve O'Rourke's management, they didn't just survive, they thrived. The transformation began with a momentary lapse of reason in 1987. For the first time since Metal, the album cover featured band photos, signaling Pink Floyd could exist without Waters. EMI backed the release with their most aggressive promotional campaign ever, including heavy MTV rotation, something Waters had always resisted. But the real revolution happened on tour. Gone were Waters' intimate theaters with perfect acoustics. In their place, massive productions designed by Mark Fisher and Jonathan Park filled stadiums worldwide. Every element of Waters' theatrical vision was supersized. Bigger screens, larger inflatables, more pyrotechnics. The very concepts he'd created to criticize stadium rock were now selling out stadiums. Former merchandising executive Tom Davidson explains, "Think about it. Every t-shirt with the wall imagery, every poster with that prism, every piece of Floyd merchandise. Waters created those symbols, but he'd lost control of how they were used. His anti-commercial art became our best-selling product. The catalog numbers revealed an even darker reality. Pink Floyd's back catalog, largely written by Waters, became a marketing powerhouse. EMI and Columbia Records launched strategic re-release campaigns, keeping classic albums like Dark Side of the Moon on the charts decades after release. Each sale generated royalties for the Pink Floyd trademark, but Waters' creative control was gone. It wasn't just about the music anymore. reveals former Sony executive Michael Chen. They were selling an experience, a brand. Waters had built Pink Floyd as an artistic statement. Gilmour's team rebuilt it as a global enterprise. They took Waters' most personal creations and turned them into corporate assets. The business model shifted entirely. Pink Floyd embraced a worldwide touring strategy, unprecedented marketing campaigns, and collaborative songwriting to ensure commercial appeal. Every decision prioritized mass audience reach over artistic purity. By 1994, they had transformed from an art rock project into a commercial empire. Former EMI president Sarah Martinez reflects on the change. Waters created concepts meant to challenge commercialism. After he left, those same concepts became the backbone of one of the most successful commercial enterprises in rock history. The ultimate irony? His anti-commercial message made more money without him than it ever did with him. The numbers tell a brutal story. In 2022, Pink Floyd sold their recorded music catalog to Sony for $400 million. Waters, the architect of their most iconic works, learned about the deal in the press. The streaming numbers are ruthless, reveals digital marketing analyst James Chen. Pink Floyd reaches over 20 million monthly listeners on Spotify, massively outperforming Waters' solo work. The art has outgrown the artist. Live performances reveal an even wider gap. While Waters books arenas, Pink Floyd tribute bands pack the same venues, often selling more tickets. The market values the illusion over the reality, the brand over its creator. The very symbols Waters designed to protest commercialism now generate millions in merchandise revenue without him. Former tour manager Michael Davidson witnessed this transformation. Waters wanted perfect sound, perfect theaters, complete control. Now his work fills stadiums through tribute bands. The Pink Floyd experience sells better than the actual Roger Waters experience. That's gotta hurt. Concert promoter Rachel Martinez puts it bluntly. Every time Waters makes headlines now, Pink Floyd's streaming numbers spike. He's accidentally becoming their best promoter. His protests feed the very machine he's fighting against. The personal cost runs deeper than money. While Pink Floyd thrives on nostalgia and merchandising, Waters keeps creating new material, pushing boundaries, taking stands, even when it costs him commercially. The irony is inescapable. The man who wrote Money lost control of one of the most valuable catalogs in music history. Watch what happens when Waters speaks out politically, notes streaming analyst Tom Phillips. People don't engage with his new messages. They retreat to comfort listening old Pink Floyd albums. He's become a promotional tool for the very corporation he's fighting against. Let's follow the money. The 2022 Sony deal valued Pink Floyd's recorded music at $400 million. Just the recordings, not including merchandise, publishing, or licensing. Waters, the man who wrote their most iconic works, found out about the sale in the press. Former EMI accountant Richard Sullivan breaks down the reality. Every time Pink Floyd's catalog gets revalued, the gap widens. Waters keeps his songwriting royalties, but the real money is in the brand he left behind. The name is worth more than the music. The current numbers paint a clear picture. Pink Floyd's monthly streaming audience tops 20 million listeners. Their merchandise, still using Waters imagery, sells worldwide. The Wall, the Pig, the Prism, all his creations, now corporate assets generating revenue he can't control. Former Sony executive Rachel Martinez sees the irony. Waters created these symbols to challenge commercialism. Now they're being sold on t-shirts and posters. Each protest he makes just drives more attention to the brand he's fighting against. Industry veteran Tom Phillips explains the final twist. He's not just earning less, he's paying more. His solo shows cost more to produce because he can't use certain Floyd properties. He's basically competing against his own legacy. The 1987 settlement did more than separate Waters from Pink Floyd. It turned his artistic vision, into someone else's corporate asset. The machine didn't just take his band, it transformed his anti-commercial message into its most marketable product. What really happened to Roger Waters' empire? The raw numbers tell one story. A corporate music machine now worth $400 million, built from his artistic vision. 4 decades of contracts, lawsuits, and settlements tell another. The systematic transformation of an artist's vision into a commercial product. But there's a third story hidden in the streaming numbers and box office reports. While Pink Floyd reaches 20 million monthly listeners with songs Waters wrote, he continues pushing boundaries with new material. His 1987 decision didn't just cost him control of Pink Floyd, it forced him to rebuild his entire artistic identity. Today, Pink Floyd thrives on nostalgia and merchandising. The Wall, once Waters' intimate theatrical vision, now fills stadiums through tribute shows. His anti-commercial concepts have become corporate assets, generating millions through the very system they were created to criticize. Former EMI executive Michael Torres reflects on the legacy. The music industry didn't just separate Waters from Pink Floyd, they turned his protest art into their most valuable product. Every time someone streams The Wall, they're buying both versions of the story, the artistic statement Waters made and the corporate brand he lost. The final ledger shows something remarkable. While Pink Floyd became the ultimate commercial success story, Waters became something they never expected. An artist who couldn't be bought. His decision cost him control of his life's work, but it bought him something money can't touch: the freedom to remain exactly who he is. Sometimes, the biggest losses create the most interesting stories. And sometimes, losing an empire is the only way to save your soul.